like I had a lot of confidence in myself and my skills and what I knew how to do and my passion. Really loved the company, really loved the products that we were working on, really loved the people that I was working with. Like I thought I was going to be in that job for life. Like I was so passionate about that workplace. A variety of feedback, but particularly the one that really stuck out was sort of being too authentic. And I really mulled over it. I wanted to perform well. I wanted to make sure that I was building good relationships. I wanted to be really integrated into the workplace and into the workplace culture. So I really took it to heart. And I was like, okay, like, what does that mean? And so I ended up actually finding myself sort of shriveling as a person and really, second-guessing myself, second-guessing what I was saying, not going for opportunities, not presenting fantastic ideas or creative ideas, or even connecting with peers and colleagues and leaders, and sort of starting to sort of dim that light in order to try and fit into what I thought was the perfect environment and culture for me.
Welcome to Narrative's Leadership Story Talks, where great leaders go beyond the bottom line to create lasting impact. Join hosts Jerome Deroy and Julienne Ryan as they uncover the stories behind real-world challenges, offering practical insights to help you lead with empathy, authenticity, and purpose. Each episode dives into how leaders use storytelling to build trust, foster connection, and inspire action. Whether you're navigating workplace dynamics, driving change, or building high-performing teams.
Welcome to Leadership Story Talks. My name is Jerome Deroy, and I'm the CEO of Narrative.
And I'm Julienne Ryan, and I'm so happy to be here.
Great to see you again, Julienne. Yeah, very happy to be here. And our esteemed guest, which I'll be introducing in a moment. Before we move on to that, I want to remind our listeners to subscribe to the podcast, Leadership Story Talks. Leave a review wherever you find your podcasts, and check out our YouTube channel where you can see us in glorious Technicolor. And of course, check out narrative.com, narativ.com/podcast, because that's where you'll find our entire archive of more than 160 episodes. So without further ado, today we're joined by Lata Hamilton. Lata is a change, leadership, and confidence mentor, the author of Pioneer Your Career Change, and the creator of the Leading Successful Change program. After tripling her salary in just 3 years to almost $200,000, her mission is to help women carve their own paths for change in their career, leadership, and life, and find the confidence and authenticity to truly earn their worth. Lata has worked with some of Australia's biggest companies on changes that have impacted over 100,000 people. Operating model changes impacting thousands, global cultural transformations, and digital transformation that is literally changing the way that we work. Welcome to the show, Lata. Great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's super exciting to be here.
Yeah. And you are, of course, calling today from Australia. And so yeah, just want to acknowledge you for getting up bright and early so that we could do this. So thanks very much. I want to start the podcast the way we always start with all of our guests. And that is to ask you, what's an experience that has shaped who you are today, still influences you or informs maybe your work in some way?
Yeah, I think, reflecting on this question for me, it was probably definitely how I got my start in change management. It was actually just like a corridor conversation with a friend. So I had been working in marketing and I had studied media and communications at university. I'd gone into sort of like sales and marketing graduate program, and then I was still working in marketing, and I wasn't quite sure, like my fixed term contract was coming up to its end, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do next. And a friend of mine was a project manager, and she just sort of like looked at my background and sort of my personality and who I was and everything, and she was like, "Oh, I think you'd be really great in change management." And I had no idea what change management even was. But I think sometimes we get these little like sort of nuggets or these little hints from the universe that might come through somebody else that can actually, if we listen to them and we actually take them, they can be the best thing that ever happened to us. I mean, I've been working in change management ever since. It was the perfect fit for my skills, experience, and my passions and what I love to do. And yeah, I'm so grateful to her because it was something that probably for her was just some, flippant suggestion, but for me it was absolutely life changing. So definitely sort of be curious, be open about what the possibilities are. And, sometimes other people might have really good ideas and sort of suggestions that if you're open to them can really lead you in really different pathways.
Mm.
And that's wonderful.
I love that, and I can't tell you how many times, probably, more than 160 times at this point in terms of, because that's the number of episodes we've recorded, but the number of times that people have told us about something that someone else told them, and that for that person was just, they probably maybe even don't even remember that, but it had such an impact on us. I just love that kind of human quality. We all depend on other people, no matter how much we might think differently. But yeah, it's all connected. So I love that's where you went with that experience. Thanks for sharing that. One of the things that you, oh, sorry, Jules,
Yeah,
Julianne,
I
go
know.
ahead.
Get excited. Anybody who
Yeah.
watches my face always sees me telegraphing some. What I love also to build on what Jerome said, which is all perfect, is the fact that sometimes when we're discussing career searches or people get
Mm.
exposed to it, they think it's a total linear approach that you follow bullet by bullet and map out everything exactly and don't pivot from that. And that's the roadmap to success. And you are a shining example of listening to larger cues and going with some internal messages as well as building on your strengths. Had you sat down maybe with some career counsel, like, well, no, that's not exactly you. This is your strength, but you went with your instincts and some good guidance, and also you had the skills and the abilities to back it up.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I love that. One of the things that I was just going to say is that when we were discussing the episode and what we could talk about, you
Hmm.
mentioned that at some point you were told that you were too authentic.
Yeah, well, that's
Um, and I just wanted to go back into that episode because or that moment, just to ask how that sort of shaped the way that you show up now, as this kind of multi-hyphenate leader, coach, change practitioner, um, and how maybe you help others.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of told that I was too authentic while I was in my graduate program. So, really early on in my career, actually, and I was still kind of finding my feet and probably didn't have, like, I had a lot of confidence in myself and my skills and what I knew how to do and my passion. Really loved the company, really loved the products that we were working on, really loved the people that I was working with. Like, I thought I was going to be in that job for life. Like, I was so passionate about that workplace. And so, it was a variety of feedback, but particularly the one that really stuck out was sort of being too authentic. And I really mulled over it. I wanted to perform well. I wanted to make sure that I was building good relationships. I wanted to be really integrated into the workplace and into the workplace culture. So I really took it to heart. And I was like, okay, like, what does that mean? And so I ended up actually finding myself sort of shriveling as a person and really, second guessing myself, second guessing what I was saying, not going for opportunities, not presenting like, fantastic ideas or creative ideas, or even connecting with peers and colleagues and
Mm.
leaders. And sort of starting to sort of dim that light. In order to try and fit into what I thought was the perfect environment and culture for me. And then it wasn't until really that I actually changed companies, which was a really big step for me, and sort of like leaving that company that I thought would be a job for life, changing companies, and then changing careers from marketing into change management, and realizing that actually maybe it wasn't me that was too authentic. Maybe it just wasn't the right place for me to shine
Mm.
and for my gifts to actually be encouraged and appreciated. I guess empowered to really bring everything that I could to the table. And so it was almost like not just immediately dismissing the feedback, but really trying to work through it, and then going through and going, does this actually feel right? Like, is this actually um, does this actually feel like the right way that I want to live, the way that I want to be perceived in career? And when I I was working with coaches, and I was getting certified in neurolinguistic programming and coaching of myself, so NLP, neurolinguistic programming, which, if you
Mm.
don't know what it is, it's the study of excellence in behavior, communications, and psychology, or our emotions. So I was doing all of this really sort of like inner work, and I think that really built like my strength and my muscle in myself, what I was here to do, what I wanted to do, what I was passionate about, and the value that I could bring. So doing that and then sort of changing companies, changing careers meant that I put myself into the path to attract leaders that actually loved my style, like had my back, advocated for me, gave me opportunities beyond my wildest dreams, and almost like threw me in the deep end in many cases to see if I would sink or swim. And and then I would swim, and if I needed a little bit of a floaty or something like that, they would throw one in for me. And that was amazing. So I think sometimes it's like questioning a little bit. Is it you who needs to change, or is it the environment that you're in that needs to
Mm.
be made a change? And only you can answer that question by sort of digging deep and
Hmm.
sometimes being really brave, being really courageous, and making that pivot.
Yeah.
Okay. So every time we do these episodes, we also do a post game analysis of what we learn. And I think we have our two pull quotes there. The thing you just said about maybe it's the situation or the fit. And then also where you said you started to question yourself and try to reshape yourself, and it wasn't feeling right. And you didn't feel like you have the wrong outfit on, the wrong shoes on. So that is our story, and I'm sure when people are listening to it, they're gonna be a lot of, "Yay, that's me," and you're gonna be serve as a great example of, like, fit yourself into a situation that suits you versus vice versa.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. What that brings to mind for me is, values in terms of what does an organization live by? What are its values, and then what are your values, and are those a fit? But then you go into an organization where there may be the value of authenticity somewhere in there, but clearly it's not. People aren't walking that talk, and I think all of that exists, right? And so, yes, I mean, what we often kind of see and talk about is, what are the stories that are being told that are evidence of those values? Like, that's actually what's going on in here. And I always encourage people to sort of look at that. What are you hearing from others about this company and this organization, and does it actually fit what you're thinking? Because what you just described, Lada, it's almost like you described two ends of the spectrum. In answer to the very first question, someone tells you something that's life affirming and changing and all that, and you go with it.
Oh, yes.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, someone tells you the thing that actually shuts you down, right? And I wonder, with those two ends, when you work with people or with organizations, how do those two ends kind of inform things? Here's someone who told you something really positive that launched your new career, basically. And here's something that someone told you that, and again, they may not be aware of it, that just was really negative for you and kind of shut you down. How do you kind of help people reconcile things, if that's the right word, or deal with these kinds of things that are told to us on a regular basis?
I think it comes back down to, as a leader, and particularly as a consultant, and a trainer, like a coach for so many people, that it ultimately comes down to you feeling like you're aligned, and then you attract the right people in. So, like, you'll attract the right, in my case, clients, or you'll attract the right leader, or you'll attract the right students that are actually ready and willing and wanting to hear those messages, and they're actually wanting that support and that value. When people are sort of on each end of the spectrum, positive and negative. For me, I think it's more about sort of helping them to reframe and really articulate what it is that they, particularly, if there's more of the resistance side, what it is that they're actually looking for, what it is that they actually want. And it's going deeper than the surface level. That's why I love sort of bringing the neurolinguistic programming and coaching into the work that I do. It's because it's going deeper than just the surface level. You're actually digging down and really uncovering people's habits, patterns, fears, beliefs in order to be able to question, is what it is that they're saying, is it justified? Like feedback can be justified, or is it potentially something that is more to do with how they're experiencing the world at this particular time, and then helping them on that journey. So, for example, in the work that I do, organizational change management, if you don't know what it is, I love to define things really simply. It's just moving people from doing things in one way in an organization to doing things in a new way in an organization. And we do that sort of through three key areas: through communications, training, and business readiness. And we do it in order to realize the business benefits of the change. So the return on investment of why we're doing this project, why we're doing this transformation, why we're bringing in this initiative or this new tool, system, application. So we want to help people feel informed, inspired, confident, and ready for the change. And obviously, when it comes to change management, it can bring up a lot of resistance, a lot of fear, a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. And if we just brush those things under the carpet, we don't actually help people come on board the journey. We don't help people adapt and grow in what they believe is possible for themselves, for their future. And so, what we really want to do is we want to make space and create, I guess, breathing space for those concerns, for the feedback, for, maybe that criticality or that negativity or that resistance, and then help them actually work through that. And the other side to this that I would probably add is, like, it's not your problem all the time to fix. Like, so one of the things can sometimes be, especially if you are, working on projects, working with clients, it's actually the responsibility sits with them to have to want to change how they think and feel and how they behave, how they operate. You can, lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You can provide all of the environment, all of the tools, skills, experience, resources, capabilities to help get them to that positive end of the spectrum. But ultimately, the responsibility still lies with them to get them there. So sometimes taking a little bit of an objective approach can help too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really glad that you defined what organizational change management means to you, and your process, because I think that's one of those terms that's thrown around quite a lot. And so it's always helpful to get a definition for it. And then the other thing I just wanted to follow up on is that it sounds like your approach is very much following the people. So you have, I'm sure, you've got a process that you take people through, but clearly wherever they are is where you're going to go. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, definitely. It's sometimes I think we assume that people are more progressed, more open, more advanced sometimes than they actually are. And so sometimes we do have to come in and meet people where they're at, whether it is on the personal front, um, where, I might be helping somebody sort of through a career change, or where it is on an organizational front, where potentially sometimes it's even the most senior leaders of the organizations, the ones that actually signed off on the transformation or on the project themselves. They've said one thing, they've signed it off, but even they themselves, in their heart of hearts, are not ready for this change. I've worked with boards, I've worked with CEOs, I've worked with C-suites, executive teams, senior leaders, project teams, as well as frontline teams and end users. And there is such a variety sometimes, where sometimes it can be the most senior people in the organization who are the most resistant to the change. The frontline staff and users are actually super excited because they can absolutely see how this is going to improve their day-to-day, their tasks, the customer experience. And we have to spend more time sometimes engaging and getting those senior stakeholders on board to get the change over the line, which you'd automatically assume it would be the other way, but it's not necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Um, on the subject of change management, we've obviously gone through, and I think this is global, in terms of automation, the progress of AI, and many people kind of fearing for the sustainability of their role, depending on where you are. Um, how has that come up in your line of work in terms of all these changes? I mean, is that what you're dealing with at this moment, or and if so, how is that? How do you get someone to understand those big changes and how it's going to affect them, and then somehow turn it into something positive?
Mm. I've definitely seen a big increase. I mean, most of the projects that I work on are digital transformations.
Mm,
It could be bringing in a new system, a new automation, a new enterprise resource platform. It could be bringing in AI, like whatever it is from a digital transformation perspective. And I think like technology vendors who are providing these solutions, like they love to sort of sell their solution as like the shiny object and
yeah.
like the answer to all your woes and problems. And so it's a really, like snazzy sales pitch. But the truth of the matter is that what happens within an organization is not that you can just go and put a system and plonk it in. You have to actually do the proper transformation that happens around that, which is around the processes, the online and the offline processes, the things that happen in the system as well as the things that happen around the system. You also have to look at the ways of working, the rhythms, the roles, responsibilities, the culture, which is why so often there is a digital transformation that then moves into an operating model change, which is the right thing to do. If you want to do
Mm,
proper digital transformation, not just a system upgrade or replacing one system with another system, you actually need to be looking at all of these factors and often building people's capability to use that
mm,
tool, to use that system in a new way in order to, improve operations, in order to improve customer experience. So like some of the key capabilities that I'll often recommend to clients will actually be along the lines of, great, you're bringing in a new system. It's got to have these amazing reports and dashboards, but if your people don't actually know how to interpret data, if they don't know how to take that, look at and analyze trends, create insights off the back of that where they question, well, why is that happening? And then go and change things, test it, and find out if they're going to get an improvement. Like, what's the point of all of the data and dashboards? There's actually a level of maturity required to investigate and then utilize the tool that's at people's fingertips. And often that capability is missing. So I'll be like, let's do insights generation capability. Let's do business partnering capability. Because if the system's going to do more of the heavy lifting, that means that your sales team or your accounts team or your customer service team has more time and capacity to actually work on being a strategic partner with customers rather than being an administrative, tactical service provider. So it's like really building that bigger picture of what that transformation's actually going to mean. Because if you're able to do that, I think then you help people bridge if the automation, artificial intelligence, system, platform application is going to impact roles, you can help people to bridge what the future could look like, and that there's actually increased opportunity. No matter what technology comes in,
mm,
like we know that that simply changes the nature of work and roles. It doesn't actually take it away overall. But there's that transition point. So there's that period between when the technology is implemented and when the new roles are created and come up. And I think it's in that gap where the confusion happens, the fear happens, a lot of the inefficiencies actually get created, a lot of the waste occurs, and then a lot of trust can be broken. A lot of teams can get burnt out. A lot of poor customer experience can occur. So what we want to do is we want to try and actually close that gap of the transition. We want to instead be able to help people come on the journey earlier and potentially have a hand in actually creating what those new roles, capabilities, and rhythms and ways of working could look like. When you're able to do that, I think it does really help to quell some of the fear.
mm,
Absolutely, there's going to be job loss. We know from the World Economic Forum in 2020 they're like, 75 million jobs worldwide are going to be lost to digital transformation technology like automation, AI. But it's like 75 million jobs will be lost, but let's flip the switch and go, great. And what does that allow us to do in the future? What does it open up? What are the new pathways, capabilities, skill sets, roles that we can
mm.
now do because the heavy lifting of administrative tasks has been taken away?
Mhm.
So I want to comment on that because I work with groups that are impacted every day, and it there is a lack of repurposing the talent in the organization because that takes a different mindset and a devotion of time and assets. So I was curious about your thoughts about that.
Definitely, I absolutely agree. It's like if the process that you take people through as you're trying to implement a digital transformation, if the process that you take people through is open, transparent, collaborative, and includes the ability to have people feel empowered around their future and around their career, you can actually shift the trajectory of the entire organization. So, one of the ideas that I love is this sort of idea of a job hackathon. I've been
Mm,
talking about it for years. And it's this
mm,
idea that actually impacted teams that they get involved in starting to understand and shape what those new roles of the future within the team could look like. Because what usually happens with an operating model change or a restructure is that it all happens behind closed doors. And so
Yep.
you've got this group of leaders usually, or a single leader, but usually it's a sort of like a group, and they're working out what that new structure should look like, what those new roles and responsibilities will be, which roles will be impacted, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem is often that there is this mismatch and this gap between what leadership thinks happens in day-to-day work and day-to-day process, like end-to-end processes, and what actually happens. And so they're making all of these assumptions based on things like outdated job descriptions, based on things like who they like, or who speaks the loudest in team
Mm.
meetings, what they see happening, like that kind of that presenteeism, do you know what I mean? And like what they can see happening. Whereas it's actually the people who are in the roles specifically who really
mm.
know the ins and outs, and who, like, the opportunity for them, like, they probably actually, like I mentioned, sometimes they can be the most supportive and the most willing to adopt a change or a new technology. So if we're able to actually bring them into the brainstorming and creative process of what that new structure, what those new roles could look like, not only do you empower them around what their future in that organization could look like, but also their future generally, which
Mm.
actually creates a more empowered and positive workforce holistically. Because sure, they might not stay with your organization, but at least they then know what value they could actually bring elsewhere. So I think it's sort of two aspects. It's sort of like this idea of getting them involved in that job design of the future, not having it land on the shoulders of leaders who are often already so overwhelmed and sometimes even scared for their own role and position in an organization, who don't always have all the answers, who are often just as new and green and fresh to the process and the ideas as you are. Instead of having the burden land solely on their shoulders, opening and sharing that up, and then also providing the tools, the resources, the capability, the training to individuals to empower themselves around their career, around their skills more holistically, not related to a specific role, not related to a specific skill set.
Mhm.
And when I say that, I actually always often will advocate that it's for everybody in the team, regardless of whether their role is impacted, because everybody's going through through the change, not just the people whose roles might be made redundant.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
for
no,
sure.
I love that, and I really resonate with this idea that of the gap, and how do you close that gap in terms of what's out there about the change. So if we take the example of AI, and the World Economic Forum says 75 million people are going to lose their jobs. What that does is that immediately half, or maybe it's a third of the people are scared because they feel like that's my job potentially. A third are excited because they're like, oh yes, finally, we're going to automate
Hmm.
things. That's what I've been advocating for. And a third are kind of neutral because they don't really know or think that maybe they'll be impacted. But whatever the case, you're creating a story there. And I think what you're doing in your process of including as many people as possible, everyone really, is that then there's an opportunity for leaders to tell a different story, to tell the story of their organization, the one that's specific to who you are, what you're trying to do. And what I often find is missing is the ability to tell that future story of what things are going to look like, what's going to be possible thanks to these changes. So I love that that's something you tackle head on because it's really needed. And so more of a comment than a question, but and I'm also looking at the clock, and it's been going incredibly quickly. But I wanted to get to one question before we end, which is around your book and career change, and just to ask you a little bit about that in terms of, you know, the book blending personal story, professional insight. What are one or two lessons that you would like people to take away from this interview in terms of career change? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot to say something
I
nice
know.
and spiffy just because we don't have that much time, but yeah, curious if there's anything that you would really like people to kind of come away with in terms of their own careers and how to think about career change.
I think there's probably two key things, like takeaways, that I would say from the book. The first one is your career is the launch pad to the rest of your life.
Mm.
So career is still the primary way for most people to earn an income, which can then create the kind of life and lifestyle that you want. And what I would say is be really open, be really curious, be really flexible with what that could look like in the future. Because I think as jobs and technology change, I think we're going to see a shift in the way that jobs are designed, in the way that hiring happens, and in the flexibility and fluidity that we might be able to do with, an increase in things like fractional consulting, independent consulting, and freelancing. So that would be sort of like one thing, is like really like consider what you want out of your life and lifestyle, and then retrofit your career to
Mm.
be able to put you on the path to that. The
Mhm.
second thing that I would say is really question the true cost of loyalty, because when it comes to organizations, when it comes to you in your career, an organization is treating themselves as a business, and they are a business, and it's the right thing. You need to treat yourself individually as a business as well. You have entered into a business contract with them, an employment contract. You're providing your skills, effort, expertise. They're paying you for it. Don't take it personally if your job is impacted. Instead, it could be the best thing ever for you. It could be the best opportunity. And if you do feel like you are not growing in a role, that you're not being appreciated, that you're undervalued in a role, it's like, don't let loyalty be the thing that holds you back from being able to truly shine, to truly earn your worth, to truly grow, to develop, and to maybe go for career changes or pivots that could absolutely transform not just today, but the future for yourself, your family, your community.
Yeah,
That's
love it.
terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any final thoughts, reflections, Julienne, or anything else you wanted to add?
What I love that you're talking about the change management. You bring a humane part of it. You recognize the humanity, not just giving a PowerPoint deck of saying, here's the changes, embrace it, tell us you love it, and off you go. You're showing that investing time and the listening and the relationships can make a more creative solution for the organization, and also provide those folks with options to whether they stay in the organization or not. They're part of something much more important, and they're being part of a change that will impact their own lives and how they view it going forward. So I think this is a discussion you need to keep saying and talking, and the executives that are working with you are quite lucky indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Lata, for being with us today. And I want to let our listeners know that you've made a few resources available for everyone. One of them is a free download called Underpaid and Overlooked Coaching Action Guide. And the other one is Creative Launch Ideas Guide as well. And of course, we talked about your book, Pioneer Your Career Change. And we're going to link in the episode notes. Listeners can find your website and any way to find you on social media as well. Is there anything else that I'm missing that you would like to let our listeners know, Lata?
No, I think that sounds absolutely perfect. Thank you so
All
much for
right.
having me.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Well, thank you so much. On that note, I want to remind our listeners to please go and leave a review if you're liking what you're hearing, and also don't forget to subscribe to Leadership Story Talks because that's the way you will not miss any of our episodes. And of course, word of mouth is always good, so please let people know about this podcast and this episode in particular. You'll find lots of resources, as we mentioned, in the episode notes, as well as on our YouTube channel, where you can kind of see what we look like and how we interact with one
Our
another,
expression.
if you're interested in that too. So, and of course, as always, if you've been inspired by all of this, we talked about storytelling, future storytelling, listening. These are all things that you can get better at. So consider enrolling yourself in one of our team, group, or one-on-one training programs. You can find all that information on narrative.com, NARATIV.com. We're always ready to listen to you, so please don't hesitate to get in touch and contact us. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. Thanks, Julienne, for being my wonderful
Thank you.
co-host. And thank you
And
again,
thank you,
Lata,
Lata.
thank you for being with us today. All right, see you next time, everybody.
For more information on the narrative listening and storytelling method and how it can help your business, go to narrative.com.